This is Automated Thought.
Recently, there was a great disturbance in the Dorkosphere. Disney has pretty much said that the Boba Fett standalone film is not going to happen. The fans of Star Wars who still actually like Star Wars, they said, "No! Damn it, you people should have gone to see Solo!" And the fans of Star Wars who now hate Star Wars, they all said,
"Good. That's what you assholes get for putting too many girls in your movies."
The good news for fans, though, is that Disney announced a new series called The Mandalorian, which will debut on their Disney Plus streaming service. It's not about Boba Fett, it's about a different Mandalorian. All in all, I think this is for the best. I think it's time for all of us nerds to acknowledge the simple fact that Boba Fett kinda sucks. Wait, no, that's incorrect. He doesn't suck. Boba Fett was pretty cool, but I think it's time that we gotta let him go. I just don't think there's much of a future for this character, and I'll explain why. Of course, first of all, let's go back in time. Why do people like Boba Fett so much? Where did he come from? Who is he? His first appearance was in the Star Wars Holiday Special, right? Wait, no, that's also incorrect.
Boba Fett first appeared at the September 20, 1978 San Anselmo Country Fair Parade.
Huh, that's kinda weird.
The character debuted on television 2 months later in an animated segment produced by Nelvana for the Star Wars Holiday Special.
You see, that's the key to understanding why people love Boba Fett so much. I personally was not there, but from listening to older nerds, I've been able to piece together what it was like. Star Wars came out in 1977. It was the biggest thing ever. Every nerd in the world loved it. They went to see it 20 times in the theater. If you were a nerd, it was your new favorite thing. And it was going to be the first mega franchise. George Lucas was telling everyone, "Oh yeah, there's going to be much more in the future. 9 movies total. It's going to be great." So then the Star Wars Holiday Special comes out, and it introduces Boba Fett in the animated cartoon, which is honestly pretty bad. I mean, look at how Han Solo looks. What the fuck? But it has this new character, this badass bounty hunter who comes in riding a pink dinosaur. He has this short little adventure with Luke and Han, and at the end, he rides off saying,
"We'll meet again, Luke Skywalker. This is not the end."
It seems like a pretty trivial thing now, but back then it was the first sign that Star Wars was going to keep expanding and making new things. The world of sci-fi geekdom was opening like a beautiful flower, and Star Wars fans, they wanted more. They were jonesing for it. "Hey, George, you got any more of that Star Wars, brother? I'm really hurting, man. I'm really hurting." And it's important to remember that in that 3-year gap there between 1977 and 1980, nobody, not even George Lucas, was exactly sure where Star Wars was going to go. In fact, Boba Fett, he was going to be the next main villain after Darth Vader. At one point, he was even going to be Darth Vader's brother. The first Star Wars movie, you know, it's actually pretty basic when you look at it. You see Tatooine, the Death Star, Yavin, and really not much else. The little glimpse of Boba Fett that people got in the holiday special, that was the indication that there was so much more left to explore. Endless worlds of possibility. But then, at some point, George Lucas sat down. He sat down with Irving Kershner and Lawrence Kasdan and who knows how many other people, and they really had to plan out the rest of the trilogy. And they came to the very correct decision that instead of following Boba Fett off into Pink Dinosaur Land, they should focus on Darth Vader, on Luke and his relationship to Vader specifically. And I don't think we'll ever truly know which one of them it was that stood up one day and said, "Hey guys, I got an idea. What if Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father? Is that too crazy? Would that work?" It was the right decision, of course, but it did mean that Boba Fett kind of got demoted to secondary status. He appeared in The Empire Strikes Back as a badass bounty hunter, and everyone liked him because he looked cool, despite the fact that he really didn't do too much. He froze Han Solo in carbonite and then flew off at the end to bring him to Jabba the Hutt. And people were like, "Okay, well that's cool, but he's going to have a really huge part in Return of the Jedi, right?" Before the third movie came out, there was a ton of speculation. Maybe Boba Fett is Han Solo's long-lost brother. Maybe he'll join the rebellion and help them defeat Vader. Maybe Boba Fett will take his mask off and there'll be something about his face, like who is he? Who is he really underneath that mask? What's he hiding? Even Mark Hamill had a pretty hot take on him.
Between filming The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, Mark Hamill pitched the idea that Fett was Luke Skywalker's mother to George Lucas, which he didn't like.
Wow, that would have been weird. I mean, imagine if Boba Fett took his helmet off in Return of the Jedi and underneath it he was Padme? That would be kind of awkward because then I would really want to have sex with Boba Fett. Oh, the road's not taken. So anyway, after all those years of hype and speculation, after all those kids spent all their childhood sitting around talking about Boba Fett and what he might mean in the grander scheme of things, Return of the Jedi finally came out, and... Han hit him and he fell in the pit and he was eaten. He was dead. And that was it. He didn't really have much of a part to play at all. You never saw his face. He didn't have any significance. He captured Han Solo, and then he fell in the pit. And that was it. All in all, it was kind of a letdown. It's no wonder that when George Lucas was writing his prequel trilogy years later, he felt the need to revisit Boba Fett. He realized that he didn't really give the fans what they wanted the first time, so he was going to go back and correct that mistake. In the process of doing that, he kind of made an even bigger mistake. Don't get me wrong, I love you, George. There's no animosity. But you did kind of completely trash the mystique of this character by making him a little kiddie clone of Jango Fett. I mean, I can kind of see the reasoning here. Well, what I'm going to do is we're going to go back and make all these connections between characters that shouldn't exist. We have to do something with clones because, you know, Luke said to Obi-Wan, you fought with my father in the Clone Wars. We got to have the Clone Wars and we got to have more Boba Fett. So, what if Boba Fett was one of the clones? What about that? Oh, and we also have Darth Vader in C-3PO. What if Darth Vader built C-3PO when he was a little kid? Oh man, people are going to love this stuff. No, George. No, just these were bad decisions. These decisions were not wise. I'm sorry. I mean, for one thing, it's kind of creepy why Jango Fett would want a clone of himself as a son in the first place. Who would want that? Did Jango get his balls fried off in some kind of freak jetpack accident? Why couldn't he go meet a Mandalorian woman and have a baby? If that's not an option, surely there's some Mandalorian orphan kids you could adopt. I guess if your son was your clone, then you'd know exactly how he thinks and stuff, and I guess that might make parenting easier. I don't know, it's still kind of creepy. So Jango Fett's a sick fuck, he gets his head cut off, it's all good. But where does that leave Boba Fett? What happened in the prequels completely changes him. I mean, look at where he is now. He's now a guy who lives in a galaxy where there's 50 million other people who look exactly like him, and they're used as cannon fodder because they've been tampered with to make them docile. No wonder he never takes his helmet off. Imagine being Boba Fett and walking around without your helmet on. Every other person you ran into, they would say something like,
"Hey, you! Hey, clone! Go help us, go move these boxes for us, huh?" "How dare you? I am not a clone trooper. I mean, I am a clone, but I'm a special kind of clone. I am genetically unaltered. I am not programmed to serve you." "Hey, guys, get a load of this clone here, talking about how he's the one special clone in the galaxy. Walking around with his balls out like that. Man, shut the fuck up, clone. Go move them boxes."
I mean, what kind of life is that? More importantly, what kind of movie could you make about that guy's story? People hated Boba Fett's origin so much they said that, hey, maybe the Boba Fett movie, it should be about another guy who kills Boba Fett and takes his armor, and he's the one who becomes the badass bounty hunter. But then again, that's not really a Boba Fett movie, is it? It's some guy movie. And yes, I know that supposedly Boba Fett escaped from the Sarlacc pit and he went off to have many other adventures, all of which are now not canon. The Boba Fett that appeared in the novelizations was probably much cooler, but in terms of the movies, he just kind of fizzled out. He's a dud, and that's why we should let the character just kind of rest in peace.
You see, the sad and beautiful truth about Boba Fett is that his greatest adventures didn't take place in the Star Wars movies. They took place in the backyards and the bedrooms of about 1 million kids as they played with their Boba Fett action figures and dreamed up for themselves where he came from and who he really was.
I think that Disney should let the original trilogy era rest in peace. When they go back and make these prequel films that supposedly happened around the same time as the original trilogy, either just before it or right after it, I don't know, to me it never looks right. The technology is too shiny. They don't match up with the original trilogy very well. Rogue One and Solo, they just don't feel like they belong in the same time period as The Empire Strikes Back and A New Hope. Disney should put Boba Fett to bed alongside Han Solo and move on to the future. The galaxy with Rey and Finn and Poe and Kylo Ren, that's where we need to focus on. And since Disney is making that new show called The Mandalorian, I'm hoping that's what they're going to do. I think this show, The Mandalorian, is probably going to be more awesome than any Boba Fett standalone movie would have been. I mean, look at the talent involved. You got Jon Favreau, Giancarlo Esposito, Carl Weathers, and Werner frickin' Herzog? Dude, Those are heavyweights. That is some serious talent right there. And beyond that, come on, these days, television shows are better than movies. I like movies and all, but the typical 2-hour blockbuster format, it's becoming something of a straitjacket. Every 2-hour action movie these days is pretty much the same. You introduce your characters, you throw them together, they're racing against the clock, they visit 3 or 4 locations, and then at the end they have to blow everything up and save the day. And instead of character development, you get a bunch of CGI and a bunch of explosions that nobody really cares about anyway. Remember, when the first Star Wars movie came out, people were going to see it because of the special effects. The trench run at the Death Star, nobody had ever seen anything like that. It was unprecedented, awe-inspiring. Nowadays, special effects like that are commonplace. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was watching Rogue One, I was like, this is a pretty good movie. But the best parts, the parts that I wanted more of, are the parts where Krennic was talking to Galen, or when Galen was revealing how he spent his life sabotaging the Death Star from within. During the big battle at the end, I kind of got bored and started falling asleep. The same thing with Solo. All those parts in the middle where they're flying through the space in the Millennium Falcon, trying to escape the giant creature in the black hole, and breaking into the mine with all the robots and shooting everyone. I'm bored. My eyes glaze over. I want to take a nap. But then at the end of Solo, when it was just the characters in a room, when it was Solo, Dryden Voss, Kira, and what's-his-face, Woody Harrelson, those characters interacting, suddenly I wake up and I'm interested again. Drama between real humans standing in a room and interacting with each other is always going to be more interesting than just shit blowing up and spaceships crashing into each other.
What was so important that you had to call Howard before our meeting? The only thing I can think, the only thing that makes sense is you told him not to hire me. It was always you, right? Right back to when I passed the bar and tried to join the firm, you didn't want me. Speak up. Tell me why. It's the least you can do for me now. I'm your brother. We're supposed to look out for each other. Why were you working against me, Chuck?
You're not a real lawyer.
I'm what?
You're not a real lawyer. University of American Samoa, for Christ's sake? An online course? What a joke. I worked my ass off to get where I am. And you take these shortcuts and you think suddenly you're my peer? You do what I do because you're funny and you can make people laugh? I committed my life to this.
And I would let myself be consumed by maggots before mocking the family name and making you heir to Casterly Rock.
Why?
Why? You ask that? You who killed your mother to come into the world? You are an ill-made, spiteful little creature, full of envy, lust, and low cunning. Men's laws give you the right to bear my name and display my colours, since I cannot prove that you are not mine. And to teach me humility, the gods have condemned me to watch you waddle about, wearing that proud lion that was my father's sigil and his father's before him. But neither gods nor men will ever compel me to let you turn Casterly Rock into your whorehouse. Go now. Speak no more of your rights to Casterly Rock.
Think back to The Dark Knight and how much you loved that movie. Remember when The Dark Knight came out, every scene that people were raving about, it was just a scene where the Joker was talking to people in a room. The scene where he goes and talks to the gangsters. No special effects, no giant fights. All they have is a table and some grenades that don't even explode. The scene where Batman is interrogating the Joker. It's just 2 actors, a table, and a chair. But it's more electrifying than almost anything you've ever seen on screen. Those were the scenes that people were talking about. Nobody was talking about like the giant car chase or the big finale at the end where Batman was beating up the SWAT team. People loved The Dark Knight because of the characters. And I assume that that's what a TV series like The Mandalorian will have more of. More characters, more dialogue, fewer explosions, and a much longer running time with which to explore those characters. Can you imagine if Game of Thrones was a series of 2-hour movies instead of the show that it is? It would be horrible. It wouldn't be as good. That TV show, Fargo, it's one of my favorite things of all time. Especially the second season and the third season. If you compressed those seasons of television down into some 2-hour movies, that would be like some Oscar-winning, incredible shit. But it would not be as good as the seasons of television themselves. You can just do so much more with 7 or 10 or 12 episodes that you can't do in a 2-hour movie, where you have to just get in, meet the characters, race against the clock, boom, shit blows up at the end, the end. I'm sorry, TV shows are just better these days. There should always be some mainline Star Wars movies that focus on the big battles and the galactic conflicts. But if Disney is moving more towards shows as opposed to movies, I think overall that's a great thing. Maybe it's just me because I'm an adult now. I don't really know any kids. I don't know what the kids are thinking about things. Maybe they feel the opposite way. Maybe if you ask them, they would be like, nah, man, all those parts of the movie where people are talking, that's boring. I just want to see shit blow up again. Maybe, but I don't think so. I have no idea what they're going to do with the character of Rey. I assume she's going to live through the last movie in her trilogy. If there's a TV series in the future where she's traveling around and rebuilding the Jedi Order and training new Jedi Knights, that would probably be cooler than sticking her in just, a second trilogy. I mean, who knows? Maybe 10 years from now, 15 years from now, maybe the 2-hour action movie will be basically extinct. Maybe everything will be a series that can be however long as it needs to be. That would be a good thing. But yeah, anyway, as for Boba Fett, you were cool, Boba Fett. You were a part of our childhood. But I think you need to go away now. I don't think we really need a movie that explores your life when we kind of know what you are now. You're a clone who became a bounty hunter and you died in a pit. I'm sorry, it happens. We still love you, Boba. It's just... yeah, we're done with you, I think. I don't think we need a movie about young Yoda and where Yoda came from. We don't need that. There's some wild rumor that George Lucas himself is shooting an Obi-Wan movie like over in Ireland or something? I don't know. It might be good, but if that's not true, then we really don't need an Obi-Wan movie either. All us Star Wars fans should go forward into the future, where Rey and Kylo Ren are doing shit, and there's some character called the Mandalorian who's about to do some shit. Let us focus on the future.